Thank you very much. That was lovely. Good morning, everyone. Most of you know me. My name is Ben Jameson. It's a pleasure to be with you once again today. The title for the talk today is Return to Love. And this title comes from one of my favorite definitions of forgiveness, which is that forgiveness is to cancel the demands and expectations that block our experience of love. And so what we're really talking about today is forgiveness. And in the New Thought community, in metaphysics, we recognize that forgiveness is a very, very important part of our spiritual practice. So it's good to have as many tools as we can to do that forgiveness work. In my study, I have learned two different primary forgiveness practices. One is very, very short, and one is very, very long. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to combine those two. We're going to have a little bit of a mini workshop on how to do this sort of forgiveness work. And at the end, have a little bit of an experience of it. Before we go into what this process is, though, there are a few points about forgiveness that are really, really important to really understand. The first is that forgiveness work is something we do with, for, and by ourselves. Forgiveness does not involve anybody else. It is certainly possible to have a coach or a spiritual counselor help us through that forgiveness work, but it does not require us going out to anybody else and telling them that we forgive them. In fact, that might even make the situation worse. I mean, if I were to go up and say, you know, Linda, I just wanted to let you know that I forgive you for that horrible, awful thing you did to me. I mean, that's not really going to help the situation any, right? And this is good news because if it's a judgment that we've been holding for a very long time and that individual is no longer in the body, it means we can still do the forgiveness work and still find the freedom from those judgments because it doesn't require that person to be around. The other important thing to know about forgiveness work is that there really is no right or wrong way to do it. And there really is no prescribed amount of times that you go through a forgiveness process to get the forgiveness work done. You may do a process of forgiveness once and feel the judgment lift physically from your body. You may do it 100 times and realize 6 months down the road that you haven't experienced that judgment for a while. It might be subtle, it might be very prominent and significant. There's no real right or wrong. It's just about being in the process until you feel it lift, until you notice that that judgment is no longer there. So it's not like you can say, okay, I've done my 13 forgiveness works and this is done now. It might take more than that. It might take less. It all depends on the severity of the judgment, on how long we've been holding it, and on how willing we really are to let it go. Does that make sense? Excellent. So one of the first things in forgiveness work, and perhaps one of the most powerful steps, is starting out by taking responsibility, by taking personal responsibility for what is ours to have responsibility for in that experience of judgment. Did anybody have in the back of their head something come up that goes something like, well, I'm not responsible for this. This is what they did. That's not my fault. I've had that happen a lot, where I've been in an experience of judgment, and I've been trying to do forgiveness work, and the thought that comes into my head is, well, but I'm not in judgment, and I'm not wrong because they did it. Well, no matter what the circumstance is, there are always areas where we have responsibility. Primarily, no matter what's going on, we are responsible for how we think, how we feel, and what we do with the way we evaluate the circumstance. It doesn't matter what somebody else does in relation to us. Our responsibility is in how we interpret that. And whether or not we take responsibility for that is going to determine how successful we are in forgiveness work. Because here's the interesting thing about the word responsibility. Responsibility, the ability to respond to a situation. In order for us to be in judgment, we have to have given away that power to somebody else. We have to have given away that power to a circumstance. We have to have chosen, in essence, to be a victim to somebody else because we chose to give that away. Because if we do have complete and total authority over how we think and how we feel and how we respond to a situation, then there is no way that we can be in judgment because it's our choices. Does that make sense? So in a process of forgiveness work, this might sound something like, I take responsibility for my thoughts and my feelings. I recognize that I am the one in charge and in control of the way I feel and the way I think. I am the authority in my life. I am the authority for how I feel. There may also be responsibilities that we need to take in terms of actions. We may have done things that need to be owned up to, that we need to regain in our own authority. And what this is going to do is this is going to cut the legs out from the intensity of the judgment. Because once again, if we have given away our power and we pull it back, Now we have the authority again to make the change. We have the authority to release the judgment because we're responsible. Is that making sense? So if there are things in a situation that we're responsible for, and we have now reviewed whatever that judgmental situation is and taken responsibility for our piece, the next step is to release over-responsibility. Over-responsibility is a really tricky thing. Let me give you an example. Let's say you read an article, and this article talks about a company that's this up-and-coming company. The author of the article says that this company is a fantastic investment. And you've got a friend who you know is looking for an investment, so you give them the article. And that friend then invests in this company. The company goes belly up, and they lose a lot of money. It's really easy in a circumstance like that for us to feel responsible for that loss of money, for us to feel guilty that our friend lost money on a company they invested in because we gave them the article, we told them about that investment opportunity. And if we've got that responsibility, if we're feeling overly responsible for something that is not ours, that's going to stick with us. That's going to help hold the judgment in place. In truth, whether or not we gave our friend that article, they might have found it from somewhere else. They might have discovered something about the company from somewhere else and invested in it anyway. Our responsibility in that circumstance is very simple. We were responsible for giving our friend an article that talked about a company. That's where our responsibility ends. Their choice to purchase that company, their choice to move forward with that and the resulting loss in money is nothing that we're responsible for. So when we're doing forgiveness work, after we have taken time to review the circumstance with which we're feeling this judgment, which we're stuck in this judgmental experience, we review it, find out where we can take responsibility, where we can pull our personal power back, take authority, take dominion. And then after we've looked at the situation to find where are we taking on too much responsibility, where are we feeling responsible that is not ours, and giving that up. What that might look like in sort of a visualization aspect would be to be visualizing your energetic body. And as you are saying something along the lines of, having taken responsibility for my thoughts, feelings, and actions, I give you responsibility for yours. And visualizing, actually running your hands through your energetic body, picking up any over-responsibility that you have and actually getting it out of your body, handing it over to somebody else metaphorically, handing it over to the person who is responsible, to the situation that has the responsibility, getting it out and away and clear from yourself. Now we have our power back. We have taken control and authority of our judgments. We have taken control and authority over how we feel and how we view the situation. We have cleared from ourselves any over-responsibility, any place where we're feeling guilty, where we're taking on too much responsibility in the situation, where something is not ours, where we have not been responsible. We're getting that out. So now we're in a much clearer place. It's easy to be in a circumstance of judgment and to just let it spin out of control and not look at it clearly. These first two steps of taking responsibility where it's ours to take responsibility and releasing over responsibility help to get a clear vision of what is actually happening in the situation. I mean, how many people in here have had the experience where you get a little bit of information and you go into judgment about what you think the circumstance is, and then a little bit later you get a little more information and you're like, oh, well, that's not what happened at all. Okay, and everything's fine. The judgment dissipates that quick because you now know what the full circumstance is. That's kind of what these two steps help us to do. They help us to really see what the circumstance is, really see where our responsibility is and where the other responsibility falls. Now, at that point, we're clear what the circumstance is. We know what we have in the situation. We know what they have in the situation. Now we can get to returning to love. What we want to do at this stage is we want to bring into our experience unconditional loving. Might sound something like the meditation this morning, of visualizing white, brilliant, radiant light coming down in through the tops of our heads and filling our body and then expanding from our heart out through our hands. Whatever works for you in terms of bringing unconditional love into your body and then visualizing it going out from your body, encompassing the person, encompassing the situation, sending them high spiritual love, sending them unconditional love. Because what's the truth of who we are? The truth of who we are is loving. The truth of who we are is that ball of brilliant, unconditional, white, loving light. And what we want for anybody is an experience of that loving and that light. We don't want judgment. We don't want anger. We don't want to send negative energy out towards somebody. We want loving. I mean, isn't that right? In the core of our being, what we want is for everybody to be loved, everybody to experience love. So we get that into our experience. We bring that loving into our bodies. We energetically send that loving out, encompassing the person or the situation. And when we do the forgiveness work, we allow that forgiveness work to ride on that energy of love. So if, for example, I'm going to use the example of a guy named Bill, random name, owes you money, or owes me money, let's say. So I've now taken responsibility for my portions of it. I was upset because Bill didn't pay me. So I've got control over and have regained my power and my authority in how I feel. I have given Bill responsibility. It was his job to pay me. He didn't pay me, so that's where his bit is. I've now pulled this loving into my body, and I'm now expressing this loving towards Bill, visualizing Bill surrounded by this loving that's filtered through me because it's my return to love. Judgments happen within us. They don't happen out there. That's why forgiveness work is what's done with and for ourselves, because it doesn't happen out there, it happens here. And so now enfolding Bill in this beautiful, brilliant white loving light, that's when you say, I forgive Bill for not paying me. I forgive Bill for not following through on his obligations. I forgive for this, I forgive for that. All these things that we have figured out by looking at, where's the responsibility that's not ours? Do that forgiveness work. Then redirect that loving white light back to ourselves and do the forgiveness work for what we've already figured out is our responsibility. You know, I forgive myself for not communicating more clearly with what my intentions were around the work that I was doing to get paid and I didn't get paid. I forgive myself for whatever it was that you came up with while you were reviewing the situation that is your responsibility. There's one more really powerful step, one more really important step. Because the formula of I forgive Bill for not paying me still leaves a lot of judgment in place. Let me give you a different example. A while back, I'm working on finishing up my degree, and I was doing a math class. A math class came up, and I am not a math person. My brain is not wired for math. I don't like math. And so I opened up the coursework for this math class, and I went straight into judgment. Oh, math is so stupid. Why do I have to do this math class? I haven't used this math in the 10 years since I've been in high school. I'm not going to use it in the 10 years after I'm done with this program. I don't need math. This is stupid. Math is stupid. Ooh, math is stupid. Of course, I didn't get anything done while I was busy being in judgment. Once I caught it and corrected it, I finished the class really quickly because I was just moving through. But if we apply that same formula of I forgive Bill for not paying me to that circumstance, it would sound like I forgive math for being stupid. And that's not accurate. That statement just doesn't make sense. Math is not stupid. Math is just math. It's my judgment of math as being stupid that is the thing that needs forgiveness. So, having gone through the process of saying, I forgive Bill for not paying me, I forgive myself for not being clearer in my communication around this. The final step in this forgiveness work is to forgive the judgments themselves. I forgive myself for judging, and again, this is a random example, this is not true. I forgive myself for judging Bill as inconsiderate for not paying me. I forgive myself for judging Bill as irresponsible. I forgive myself for judging myself as a victim of Bill because Bill didn't pay me. I forgive myself for the judgment. Eventually, when we get really, really good at forgiveness work and get really, really clear about where the judgments are, we can skip over the step of forgiving Bill for not paying us and go straight to forgiving the judgment. But at times, and depending on how intense the forgiveness work needs to be, at times it's very beneficial to take that intermediary step of forgiving the actions that have happened, forgiving the situation, and then going into forgiving the judgment. Is that making sense? So if you're willing, we can do just a little bit of an experiment around this. The steps, before we do that, one thing real quick, that also is very beneficial in helping forgiveness work. Follow up the forgiveness statement with a statement of truth. I forgive myself for judging math as stupid. The truth is, math is a brilliant amazing science that brought so many wonderful inventions into the world that it benefits my life in ways that I cannot possibly imagine. I mean, that's the truth about math, right? Math brings music. Math brings chairs. Math is what helped to make the car that I drive 70 miles an hour down the road to get here in an hour. You know, math is really a very powerful thing that does a whole lot of good. So I forgive myself for judging math, and then I recognize the truth about math. I forgive myself for judging Bill as irresponsible and a horrible person for not paying me. And the truth about Bill is that Bill is a divine expression of spirit, doing the very best that he can with the information and the knowledge that he has. Bill is a divine emanation of spirit who deserves loving and joy and peace and comfort. That's the truth about Bill. So when you counter the judgment, when you've done the forgiveness work and then counter that with the truth, it really helps to get clear and to anchor in that forgiveness work deeper. Does that make sense? Awesome. So I'd like to do a little bit of an experiment with this forgiveness process. We're going to experiment with what it's like to actually reclaim our responsibility, to take responsibility for our part in a judgmental experience. So if you're willing, just find yourself centered in your chair and allow your eyes to close. We're going to do a guided inward process. Take a deep breath in, let out the sound, ah, ah. Just find yourself in that centered, peaceful space in your body. It's calm, it's neutral. And allow your awareness to split so that part of your awareness is involved in experiencing this neutrality in the core of your being. And the other part of your awareness is involved with observing your experience. Part of you is in the experience, part of you is observing the experience. And for right now, it's just an experience of that neutrality in the center of your being. And now allow yourself to bring into your mind and into your awareness a circumstance where you are aware of your judging something. Something that you have judgment around that's currently present in your life. And allow that to come into your awareness, into your experience. Make it very visible, make it very visual, make it very present in your experience right now. Look at it all. Look at all the judgments, feel all the judgments. Feel what that does to your energetic body and allow the observer portion to notice the difference, to notice how your body feels when you're in this experience of judgment. Now take a moment to really review it, looking for places where you have responsibility. We know for sure those places are in how we feel and how we think. Just look and see if there are any other areas where you can take responsibility in this situation. I'm recognizing there may be more work to do here, for this is just a brief experience. Now actually take that responsibility. Whatever way works for you. I reclaim my responsibility for the way I feel. I am in charge. I am in control of my feelings, and no one else can tell me how to feel. I am responsible. I am responsible for my actions. Visualize perhaps that energy of responsibility being extracted from the situation of judgment, returning to your physical body, your power, your authority. It may be difficult to take responsibility for some of the actions, but do your best. Really claim them as your responsibility. Again, recognizing that there may be more work to do. Check in with that observer portion of your awareness and see if the intensity of the judgment you were experiencing just a short minute ago has lessened. See if you feel more powerful. Feel like less of a victim. Noticing whatever you notice and letting it be fine, whatever you notice. Silently thank yourself for being willing to take this very short experiment. Take a deep breath, let it out with a sigh. And come back into the room, shake it out a little bit if you need to. Did anybody have any sort of an experience of that judgmental feeling lessening when you took responsibility for your thoughts and your feelings? Did anybody have that? Yeah? So that was like a minute, 2 minutes maybe? Very, very short. Now imagine if you took time in meditation to really explore where you're responsible and to really reclaim that authority. Imagine if you actually took the time to release over responsibility, to clear yourself from that burden, to really bring loving into your body and radiate that loving to the person or the situation. Forgive yourself, forgive them, forgive your judgments. Forgive the judgments in the first place. You see, all of this forgiveness work that we can do on the day-to-day minutia of our lives is very important. But it's really just practice. Because the ultimate thing that we have to do in this journey of life is to forgive our ideas of separation. To forgive ourselves for buying into the misbelief that we are anything other than perfect expressions of God. To forgive ourselves for judging ourselves as anything less than worthy of the love and the supply and the joy and the grace of Spirit. These are big things to forgive. But it's possible to forgive them. We can practice on the little things in our lives that may seem like big things to get us to the point where we can truly forgive the ideas of separation that hold us bound where we are. My friends, it is always a pleasure for me to share with you. To stand up here and see the face of God looking back at me as each and every one of you is truly a blessing that I treasure every time. It is my honor and privilege to share with you. Namaste.